This is the Amp Hour Podcast. Released September 13th, 2020. Episode 508, sponsored by Mouser Electronics. Doomed to the Flatland.
Welcome to the Amp Hour. I'm Dave Jones from the EEV blog.
And I'm Chris Gamble of Contextual Electronics.
We're talking about things we don't miss doing.
Yeah.
I was just mentioning you sounded, just before the show, you sounded like you were like dead asleep.
Dead to the world, yeah.
Dead to the world. And tell us why.
Well, I spend a lot of the day, placing 0402 components with tweezers, and, it's part of the job, and, yeah, it's it's just so here's the positive of it. Like I get to listen to podcasts all the time. I listen to the interview with Lewis. I thought that was great. It's nice from a catch up, kind of turn my brain off point of view, but my brain's off, so that's why I've been a little low energy today. So yeah, that
is a great way to listen to podcasts. I mean, I haven't sat in front of and spent 10 hours under a Mantis microscope for quite some time now, so that is something I do not miss.
Yeah, it's low effort enough that you can actually listen to stuff and not
you can tune out. That's right.
Yeah.
Whereas most stuff, like if I'm working at the computer or something, I can't be listening to a podcast. It's too distracting. It's like, but yeah, something like that I could certainly, but I just don't do it enough to be able to listen to podcasts like you do. Fiend.
Basically that, and so my podcast times are walking the dog,
right?
Who just looked up at me? He's like, "What? Oh, time to go." Cleaning the house, driving, but I don't do that anymore. And then soldering things, and that's
driving. Another thing I don't miss.
I don't. Oh yeah, I don't miss that at all. Yeah.
So
travel too. So I just got back from travel, and I don't miss traveling. Here's the thing I miss. I miss going to conferences and meeting nerds and hanging out and geeking out over boards and stuff like that. But if they were all in my hometown, sign me up. I don't want to get on planes and stay in hotels and be away from home and my wife and just I want to just be in my stuff. I want to be here, and so. I don't miss the travel part. Was nice, of course, especially when companies paid for it. But
it's better when you're younger. But people say, before the whole COVID thing, why don't I come to here? Go to the US, go to Europe. It's like, do you realize how long it is?
Yeah. Yeah, but you never do it. So I mean, I think they're saying do it once. Yeah, you used to. Yeah. No, but it's a huge thing.
No, basically since I had kids, it's just not a It isn't a thing that I really look forward to doing. I'll hop on a plane and I'll go to, a trade show in Melbourne, or I'll go to a thing, a conference at Queensland or something like that, but I'm not going to sit on a plane for 15 hours. I'll sit on a plane for a couple of hours.
Right.
But no, don't miss it.
Well, I don't blame you on that one, but it's too bad. It's really too bad that the one thing I thought was going to come out of the whole, quarantine pandemic thing was going to be better VR, AR technology type stuff. I haven't seen anything that has improved the in-person meeting kind of.
No, it's still dodgy experience. Skype and Zoom.
Yeah, exactly.
Still with the crappy, grainy webcam garbage,
Well, not all. I mean, you and I can, we can do better.
We can do better. Yeah,
but
exactly.
Most people, yeah.
It's just garbage, and people have no idea how to half their heads chopped off, or their they have no idea how to frame a camera, and jeez.
Yeah, I had a fun experience with that over the weekend. I was talking to my family, and I have nephews and a niece, and so I was talking to my parents on their iPad, and it was on the table as they put out snacks for the family that was all showing up there, and I was talking to them, and then my niece comes into the frame. She shows up and comes into the frame, and there's cheese and crackers on the table there, and she's just this giant, just inhaling cheese right into the camera just because of the angle it is. It's
right. People have zero awareness for Zero camera awareness.
Yeah. I still think, like I said, I think there's, we made that joke on here a long time ago about like the idea of like a teddy bear with like a, a face on it.
Oh God, yes.
That was like a long time ago.
The telly bear or something. What was it called?
Yeah, exactly. Whatever it was called.
Telepresence bear or something. Yeah. So you could sit the bear in the conference room and you could telepresence with the, we're gonna. We were semi-serious about that, weren't we? It was an April Fool's joke.
That was like an April Fool's joke or some silliness. But like there is still like, I don't know, telepresence is so creepy to me, but it's still like, it still sucks, It's still like wanting to be able to just be able to manipulate the camera, move it around. Like in that scenario where like, I don't want someone to have to move the camera around while there's, a bunch of my family members in like one room. It's not a huge room. They're all sitting at the end of a table. I would like to be able to actually like move my head around and be able to like, that it just tracks the motion or something like that. It doesn't have to move. I don't have to like have VR headset on or something like that. Literally just being able to pan a camera around would be nice, but that's
it's not even great in science fiction. If you watch like various like science fiction movies and shows and stuff, it's like it's not even that great in those.
Right. Yeah. Like Ready Player One, maybe, but like.
Okay,
that's so immersive.
But that's that's a full that's helmet.
Yeah, exactly.
Base. Yeah. That's like
That's like you're living in that virtual space. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think the problem is it's just like expensive. So like I started thinking through this too of like, well, what would it cost? So imagine you just had like a little motorized platform for an iPad, right? So just say you're just gonna say it's literally just like a motorized turntable, but like what are people willing to pay to have that sort of thing? And like $100, right? It's like, okay, so now how much of that can be just pure bomb cost, and like what, $10 maybe 20,
right?
And like if it's a consumer level thing, then you also have to like factor in all the software that would go on top of that, and
then you got to line it all up, and it's got to be like you can't just whack it there and go, right? If you've got so if your iPad's sitting in the middle of your boardroom table and it's on this spinny thing, right? And then, just think of the practicalities of that. You've got it's got to be lined up and framed for each person. It's got to know where each person is. Sure, you could do that in software with tracking and stuff like that. But then you've got the pan, like, you like the person watching at the other end's got this, constant panning bloody thing from as one person speaks. It's got to spin around to the, person who's speaking. It's like, just think of the, like you really need like a 360 camera. You need like instant to make it.
Yeah.
Really, you people would just get seasick. I get that. Yeah. Every time I go out and do a handheld camera footage, I get people complaining about being seasick.
Oh, yeah.
Every time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the human inner ear is not made for it.
No. Well, and some people are just like, they just can't handle anything,
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
And it's like, I'm actually watching the same footage going, what's the problem? I don't.
Right.
And they're going, oh, it made me physically sick. It's like, you turn your Steadicam on. I've got my Steadicam on, It's like, and you still get sick. It's like, pan slower. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's like, no. You've got to, it has to be purpose designed.
Right. And then in that case, then, so then you think about, okay, well, now we need to implement like a bunch of other, either control algorithms or say like even a DJI, like the gimbals that are out there now, like those things are fantastic technology for super cheap. Like they make these
of course,
crazy motor driven, all my camera gear obsession stuff. Like I watch these things that they just came out with a new one that's like $500, but it can like, steady cam like a 2-3 pound camera, like pretty heavy stuff. And like, but like that's $500 and that's from DJI, who's doing like high volume, already got all the algorithms dialed in and stuff like that. So now you start thinking, I was like, oh man, like all this stuff. And it's like, it really starts to come into focus why this isn't a thing yet. Like people aren't willing to, and maybe there are some solutions out there. I don't deny that. It's just that it's not widespread because it's a lot cheaper to just have an iPad and just have it propped up and it's just doing its thing.
I suspect that we might be doomed to that future. I mean, it's like
Flatland.
Right. Because I'm just thinking of the practicalities of it. It's got to be purpose designed. I can't visualize any just sort of cheap, generic, push the button and go solution that will be like really practical and solve all the problems. Yeah. I'm just not seeing it.
I think it would have to tie into an existing platform like an iPad or a
generic consumer solution would have to, yes. It'd have to use the existing ridiculously powerful tech that we already carry around in our pocket.
That's right.
Or bag, right?
Right. For what? $500-$600. It's insane.
Yeah. But by limiting yourself to that, you're limiting yourself to the ability, I think. I think there's no like real solution. As I said, like it's just the physics of it. How can you, unless you can whip that camera around in 0.1 of a second, how is it not going to be, panning from one person to the next? Like, right. Like, and then if two people start talking at the same time, how does the algorithm handle that? Does it suddenly zoom out and have two people talking at the same time? Because you'd want that.
You were thinking like autofollow. I was thinking like I would just have controls of it. Like literally, I would just be able to press arrow keys or something like that. Or
swipe. No, of course, you can do it manually. I'm talking about like fully automated solutions that just work, that any dumbass can use, and nobody has to control. It just magically sci-fi works, right?
Right. Yeah, and I've seen some of that stuff. Like, so there's some conference solutions that are out there that are like that. But yeah, and they didn't work that. I mean, like I think Samsung might have had that, and that was back in I was there 06, 07. So like even then they had it, and I'm sure it was very, very fancy and very expensive. But yeah, it still didn't go that great, and it's kind of disconcerting too when you're on the receiving and you're like seeing this camera like snap between different people, and you're like, oh my god, like what is it doing? It's got that kind of servo.
And then they try and talk at the same time, then it snaps back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Right.
And it's like. Yeah, because with telepresence, as people no doubt aware with our show, it's like we're on the other sides of the planet. We can't see each other. There's no visual cues. We're gonna talk over ourselves and guess. It's just one of those things,
Right. Well, we've dialed it in, Dave. Come on, 10 years.
Oh yeah, we're getting we're getting okay at it, but it still happens. It's like
well, that's why I have an editor too.
Well, yeah, exactly. That helps. But how do you do that in real time?
I don't know.
See.
Yeah.
There's another layer of complexity that may not be practically solvable.
Well, if it's like a steampunk future, then you have like a digital assistant that's doing that for you.
Right.
The person behind the curtain or something.
Right.
So speaking of things behind the curtain, probably a bad segue, but you were also talking about this like amazing tech in our pocket. I got to see this amazing X-ray machine that my workspace has. And I got to check it out today, and one of the operators was showing me he had scanned like a Pi Zero, and like, oh man, like it was like high end, like super crazy scanning of like BGA voiding and stuff like that. And
I was going to say this is a specific BGA machine, right? This is like that's its purpose. No,
it's not even specific to BGAs. It's a full 360-degree X-ray reconstruction. And so basically you can scan in and reslice all the way through everything that's in there. And so basically you're showing me like all the contrasting you can do. And he basically like slid all the way from the top through the bottom and showed like,
that's pornographic.
It was really, really cool. I'll have to see if they're published.
How much does that cost?
My question too. He said upwards of $900K.
I was going to say it's like mid 6 digits. Like
Yeah. I thought it was going to be I thought it was going to be multiple millions, but yeah, it is super cool.
Right. So this is the new super low cost version at $900K. Yep.
Yeah. So
wow.
And
how does it move the camera or does it move the object?
It moves. So it has a rotational table, so it has like an A. I guess that's A.
Okay,
right?
So it's moving the object. It's not spinning the camera around it. It's
right. So he said that like you have to put the object at like an odd non-orthogonal angle so that you don't, so if you're looking like straight down at a part, you might have, or say the example he gave was like if you're looking at BGAs and you're looking at it from side on, right? So like looking down the row of, you might see daylight between the rows of BGAs of the balls on a BGA. He said that's actually a bad angle because then the front ball would basically block any electrons from getting to the back ball or whatever the rays are coming in there. And so basically he showed that there's like the weird kind of angle that you're trying to do, and you're trying to like rotate it at this angle and basically to get as many paths through, right? Because there's going to be basically when you're slicing through this thing, you're trying to get stuff through, right? So the metal's going to block some of it, and some of this stuff's going to absorb at different energies and stuff like that. So he showed this weird angle that you're doing it, and then you rotate the whole thing, and that's to try and get the electrons. Is it electrons? Wow. I don't even know. I guess it's X-rays. So it's it's photons, not photons.
we're not physicists. Let's shut up lest we
hand waving,
embarrass ourselves.
Right. Chris hand waves this way. But then it reconstructs everything, and like, oh my god, the computers that were in there to reconstruct everything, dude, it was so cool. So
this is your shared workspace, right?
That's right. So this was actually a corporate sponsor who installed it there.
I was going to say who paid for that, because that's a huge capital expenditure. I mean, that's just like
expense.
Yeah. That's what. So it's on loan, or was it bought by the?
It's like a primary use is of the person, the company that put it in there,
right?
And then there's some opportunities to use it outside of that. And I was like, "Ooh, okay, yeah."
So there's a big company using your shared space. They like buy a big part of your space or something, do they?
They're a corporate sponsor there, and then they basically bought enough space to be able to put this thing in there. And it is kind of closed off for most people. And there's only like a couple operators of it, but.
Okay. So you can't just wander up. It's not for the general plebs like you to use.
That's right. Right. I'd have to go to the people that do it, ask very, very nicely, and say, "Hey, can you please scan my board?" And but yeah, it was really cool too, because I didn't actually realize that this, I guess it's not a SIP, but it was like whatever the module that's on like a Pi 0, it has an internal like a circuit board internally that reroutes all from the silicon. So the silicon goes out to bond wires. That's that I expected. But then it actually goes down to a second layer. The silicon kind of seemed pretty transparent to these rays. And there's different contrasts you can play with. We didn't do too much of it, but you basically, depending on how you change the contrast, you could change what was actually showing up there. Obviously metal was super easy to see, but like, bond wires are super tiny, and gold is different than, or whatever the material is that bonding there. So yeah, it was really neat though, and I'll try and get more details and see if they'll post any videos of it, because I think like that, if it is something they plan to offer as a service, that would be good promo. Of course. I would think.
Yeah. Now I'm interested in the company that's like sponsoring like their own space in this. Is this because it's cheaper for them than renting their own space, or I assume it's like it's got to be a financial reason that it's like cheaper for that, rather than like buy all these machines themselves, all the CNC machines, the 3D machine, everything, all these X-ray things. Like basically they get already, by buying into this space, they get all the base stuff they need, and only if they need specific things do they then buy those for themselves. So it works out cheaper than renting their own space, renting their own employees, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's really the infrastructure too. You think about like, having like this thing needs like 3-phase power, and it's just like, it's a beast of a machine. And so if you're thinking about like, oh, well, we could just put this like X-ray, this is just a guess on my part, but like we're gonna put this X-ray machine like in our office, right? So if you have like commercial office space, you might be able to get it in, the building might be okay with it, but then like plumbing in 3-phase power and all the other crap that you might need there, like that's already in M-Hubs, so like no big deal there.
And the company might have just mainly like engineers working at computers or whatever, and they don't have room for like a big industrial type lab.
Exactly.
So it's cheaper to sort of rent out something like that.
Yeah. It's always interesting where sometimes you'll find like kind of more gritty office space within, like, buried in the bowels of like a commercial building. You might actually have like a gritty kind of like machine shop type thing, but it is harder to find, I think, especially if you're, it's city center. So it's not like,
and if you're in a building like mine, it's simply not an option. If you're in like an A-grade commercial office building like I am, yes, I can have an electronics lab, but I can't, go and install like a CNC machine in here. It's like, it's just not, my lease doesn't cover that sort of stuff, and it's not conducive to, this thing is like, I can't get 3-phase power. Well, no, maybe I could, but like,
right. But then the noise and all the, you wouldn't want to put it there. You'd put it somewhere else. Yeah, I heard you and Lewis talking about this. He'd be able to maybe install it, but he'd have to do it all himself.
Well, you then need a mixed use premises, and that's what we've been talking about this on the forum and various places about, because of course I'm moving back to my old lab, and it's basically office spaces all the way down, like turtles all the way down. Everyone's downsizing, which is really interesting. I would not be wanting to be left holding the bag on a large commercial office space at the moment. everyone I know is downsizing. So it's really interesting. Right. But we're talking about like these mixed use stuff. And generally here, like in my couple of business parks around here, it's either commercial A-grade office space like this in a big office tower where there's just no option for any sort of mechanical type stuff to happen. Maybe you could have a drill press and that's about it. Or it's like a giant, big cavernous, 20-meter high ceiling warehouse thing with, if you're lucky, it'll have one of those like elevated office spaces, where you walk up the stairs and it'll have like, a crappy little 20 square meter office for a couple of desks,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so it's either one or the other. Very rare do you get like 80% office space and then 20%, like in industrial type thing. There is one building in this entire park that actually splits it in half almost. So you get half big ceiling concrete pit industrial type thing with the big doors, and the other half is like really A-grade office space. So you just like wander from the, the dirty area to the clean area. So it's quite rare though.
Most people need either warehouse or office.
Yes, both. They don't need both. Yeah, it's us weirdos that kind of need.
Yeah. But we could work in the. I mean, we could work in the dark. We could work in the big warehouse space. I was actually remembering this.
I could, but it's terrible. Like
Oh man, it was so. I was actually on the road trip I was on. We there was a song. It was a Lenny Kravitz song that came on, and it was like all these memories came flooding back to me because it was the one CD that I had in the 4th industrial bay that I was sitting back in by myself with like a single desk lamp while I was like troubleshooting a fixture, and I would have this one CD and I snuck speakers in there and I would just play this one CD over and over and over again while I was troubleshooting a basic program. And so like, you hear this one song, you're like, oh God, I remember.
Is this at Samsung?
This is at AudioPack, my first co-op internship.
Okay. Yeah. How long were you there? I haven't heard of that one.
Oh, that was the very first job I had. So that was January of 2004. And then I kind of stuck around. So like I did like a 7-month co-op, it's called. So it's like you actually like don't do school, you work full time.
But this is part of your degree, right? This is part of like it's a work experience component.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is actually why I chose that reason, and also because of the financial aid. That's why I chose the school I went to, because the co-op was such an important piece of it. The thread of my life is very similar.
Some of them don't have any. You just do 4 years of,
Yeah, they say, oh, you'll get an internship over the summer if you want to, and it's like, no.
Right.
I wanted to work. I got sold on that real early, and I wanted to work and get that experience. And goddamn, I am lucky about that, because like I just remember like I remember like talking to the engineers there, and like they would just like look at me like, what do you like I remember it was like a transimpedance amplifier, and like one of the mechanical engineers who was barely doing electronics, he just like rattled this off, and I'm like sitting there staring, and I'm like, oh my God, he's the best electronics person I've ever met in my life.
And he's a mechanical engineer.
And I just it was just like such a level set of like how little I knew.
Yeah.
I had like, like 1 or 2 electronics courses in college, and like all the rest were like, general courses. Yeah. And this was like, you are in the middle of it. And I highly, if there's any students out there listening, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's like, you're going to take a little bit longer to graduate, right? So it was a 5-year program instead of 4, right. But like 4 is so arbitrary anyways. Like, why is it 4? Why not 2? Why not 1? You know what I mean? Like, there's not like any reason for that. And it's like, okay, so I did an extra semester, but I also, made a buttload of money. I actually kept working when I was still in school. So I did those 7 months, and then I actually stayed on for another 4 or 5 months. Yeah, it was great.
Wow.
And it was such a weird company too. We made it was just like audio amplifiers for gas masks and firefighter suits.
That's important.
Yeah, very important. Yeah.
Because you got to communicate when you're inside, these gas masks, and the audio has to be good. And there's lots of challenges there.
It's true, yeah. And I learned when I was there that the way that they used to, I was like, well, what did they do before they had like electronics and amplifiers? And one of the guys put on a mask, and then he started shouting at me, and I'm like, I can't hear you. And then he lifted up the mask, and he started shouting at me again. And I'm like, that's what they did? They lifted their masks up so they could talk. He's like, that's all they could do. Like, you wanted to breathe.
Exactly.
you just shout it, you take a deep breath, and then you shout, and then you put the mask back on. It's like, holy shit.
That reminds me of the video I've done with Doug Ford, who's the former head designer at Rode Microphones and Jan's Audio, and he did a video. Well, I think we did a teardown, and then he explained the design. He tore down his own product, and then explained it was the audio amplifier system and distribution system for trains. And and he explains why trains sound like this. First stop Central, next stop, and he explained why it actually sounds like this. And so that was donkeys years ago. We'll have to link that one in because it's fascinating. That's and good, it's a similar thing. Like you'd have that muffled sound inside the mask.
Right. Yeah, intelligibility. So Dave Young, who was a guest, I'll link his in too. So Dave Young is like a longtime friend of mine. We met the first day of co-op, and we've known each other ever since. He's a consultant now too, and we talk like every day. He's been on the show. He was on the consultant impedance matching episodes too. Mm-hmm. And so we met the first day, and the thing that we joked about on the show when he was first on here was a thing called intelligibility testing, right? That was like a big thing. But what you do is you put on a gas mask, you'd have this amplifier on there, and then literally you'd read a list of words, and it would just be like, circle the word bat. Circle the word cat. And and you're just trying to get vowels through because there was no like characterization. Like these days you'd think there'd be some kind of way to like, just characterize. You could characterize
some sort of DSP magic to do that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You would think it'd compensate for the acoustics of the mask or something.
Yep. But there was some requirement that was like, no, you need like 60 dB white noise, and so we'd have a speaker in the middle of the room, and you'd sit on the other side of the room and circle things on paper. It was terrible, but the experience was amazing overall.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, it's not just sticking a microphone inside a mask and, Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, right.
It's, there's a lot of art and science. You could do a PhD thesis on, an algorithm for that kind of thing. I mean, it's just, wow. Unbelievable.
Audio stuff. Yeah. Yeah. And then like, this is what's crazy too, is like, it was like all in this one area. Oh, actually, no, never mind. My second co-op was at Bird RF, and like for the longest time, I worked at this place called Bird RF, which is like they do like large RF loads and stuff like that, like for load testing. And it was like right up the street from Keithley, and like so basically between Keithley and Bird, and like I ended up living up the street from there too, and then like Audio Pack wasn't that far. I like stayed within like the same like probably 5-mile radius.
Right.
Within Cleveland, and there's not a ton of tech in Cleveland, but I tried to hit all the ones that I knew there. So
nice.
Yeah. And I didn't learn any RF when I was there. That was what I was really getting at, because I've just learned anything about RF. I basically learned it much later. So
back to the electronics at uni thing. Just people don't realize how little electronics you actually learn in an electrical engineering course.
Yeah.
It's like, you'd be surprised how little actual practical electronics you learn.
Yeah. I was thinking about this recently too. Some of the things I wish I would have gotten deeper into that are like actually really interesting to me now were like the semiconductor physics classes. Like, I think that's actually really interesting, but like they just pushed it so soon.
It's fascinating.
It was based on the physics curriculum. It was like, oh, well, you got to know, electrons and holes and electrons and holes. It was like, what the hell is a hole? And yeah, you're totally right though. Like we didn't even get that stuff until almost junior year, like sophomore, junior year. It was like when they started doing that stuff. So I was there for 3 semesters before anything.
Yeah,
I took more Japanese before I took, electronics. So
and there's huge variabilities in countries, in universities, within countries. It's just, a massive variability. Like I learnt civil engineering and mechanical engineering in the first year because, it's like
statics.
just in case you wanted to change. Right?
Yep.
Because, because most people coming in aren't like us, right? They aren't hobbyists, right? Although
Dave,
you weren't really
I wasn't
a hobbyist.
Like you. Yeah. No.
You're one of
lucky.
the strange ones who's,
No, I'm one of the normal ones, I think. I think you're one of the
Well,
strange
you're one
ones.
of the normal ones, but strange in that you didn't have a hobby background before going in engineering at uni, and afterwards you actually have a passion for it.
Oh, sure.
That's rare.
I call that lucky. Yeah, I think the fact that I guessed in like my junior, senior year of high school that I'm like, electronics sounds great. Like I like this. I think it'll be physicsy. I loved physics. Like, and I just got damn lucky, like that really was that it stuck, right? Because I have friends that went in other directions, or people that I have people that still don't know what they want to do in the mid 30s. So like, come on, like, yeah.
No, I still know EEs that, had no hobby background, but they went and they did their EE degree, and they're still working in EE, but like they're just meh. Like they just don't care about it. They don't, it's just a job to them.
Right.
Like they wouldn't watch a single video or read a single thing outside of work. And even when they're inside of work, it's just getting the job done,
Yeah. And some people
zero passion for it.
Right. But I also wonder, like, people like that too, like, I hope they find their thing at some point, but some people just aren't into stuff like that. Like, they're just like, I just love fishing though. I want to go fishing. Like, that's the thing that I do. And it's like, yeah, well, you're not going to get paid to go. Very, very few people get paid to go fishing.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, like, it's just it's just kind of what tickles our neurons, I suppose.
And we happen to find a way to make a living from it. So
Yeah.
Well, in my case, I made a full-time living from making educational YouTube videos.
Right. Yeah,
right?
Man.
How lucky is that? Jesus.
Yeah, it's a growing field, but it's still pretty narrow slice of the world.
Yep, there's not too many.
Here on the Amp Hour, we're working with sponsors who are interested in educating our listeners. Today, we're hearing again from Paul Galata from Mouser Electronics, and he's going to give some examples about how artificial intelligence, or AI, is doing good for the world. I asked Paul to start by defining AI.
Artificial intelligence is this ability to do this human-like capability of interacting with the world, receiving whatever the response are, and then adjusting in a positive direction and on our own, almost acting, if you will, under its own direction, even though it has this external programming where you're not looking for feedback from outside sources because it's happening so fast. You can't wait for the human. It just decides on its own, takes a measurement, sees, infers what it should do, makes the adjustments.
So how does this apply to the electronics world?
More recent developments include things like vision processing units or VPUs. There's processors now that are getting embedded with AI abilities inside of them so that you can go and develop and fine-tune and deploy convolutional neural networks, also called CNNs, to do things like real-time inferencing. This is an emulation of how human intelligence works, how human thinking does, where it goes in, looks at something, makes adjustments, gets feedback, and changes variables to improve towards a better output.
Could you tell me a little bit more about why Mouser is looking at this? This seems like a very, very high-level, broad topic.
Well, like I said, my job as a technology specialist is to look out into the future. Mouser is committing to being the distributor of electronic components and solutions that is at the cutting edge, at the forefront of all the technologies involved with electronics and associated technologies. We identified artificial intelligence several years ago as one of these very, very large macro trends. And so because of that, we are interested in all the changes that are afoot with our suppliers. We have a wide variety of ways that we can help people. That includes being able to provide technology products like embedded systems. An embedded system, a computer system, kind of a combination of a computer processor, some memory, input, output, peripheral devices and such, that has a dedicated function within a larger mechanical or electrical system. So we supply those solutions, which can be quite complicated.
To learn more about how Mouser Electronics is teaching their customers about artificial intelligence, check out theamphour.com/MouserAI. That's theamphour.com/MouserAI. You can download a free ebook all about artificial intelligence and learn how it might impact some of your future projects. And now back to the show. I got my boards back. So speaking of things that I've been making videos about, so I made all my boards. I think maybe I mentioned it last time we talked, but I actually ended up treated myself over my vacation time, and I got my boards assembled, and they're back, and they're beauties.
By treating yourself, you meant you got them some other poor bastard to assemble them.
Oh
for you.
yeah. I paid for domestic expensive assembly. So
right, were they machine assembled or hand assembled?
They were machine assembled. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Right. Yep. How much of a premium was that? And if you compare it to your time, let's say your time's let's make it an even $100 an hour.
Yeah. So I went with Screaming Circuits, who has been a past advertiser on the show. I should be, upfront about that. No special, special price or anything like that. But I know Dwayne and I know the team there, and I like what I've actually used them before, so good stuff. And I think it was about $250 a board, like in terms of assembly.
Yep.
So it was a little bit cheaper than I thought. It was going to be about $300, but I actually had counted wrong in terms of the number of parts that are like on the top and bottom, whatever.
Yeah.
And so about $250.
How did you count wrong? Your software spits out the bomb count.
What it really was, it's like there's a bomb plugin for KiCad, and it at the bottom it says like 170 total components.
Yeah, I've used that bomb plugin. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah, it's great, right? And so it says 191, total components, and it said 71 uniques. And I was like, oh, great. So I went and plugged that into, Screaming Circuits. They basically do all their pricing based on that. And then like one of the people there, she emails me and she's like, you know that you only have 50 on here, right? I'm like, no, it says 71 at the bottom. And she's like, well, if you look at the rows, it's only, row 2 through 51. And so I'm like, oh, okay.
So what, is that a bug? What's the deal?
It ignores all the DNPs it takes out. And so I had a bunch of DNPs.
Oh,
and it says,
you had
there are 71 total uniques, but you didn't put them all on here. So
right. Oops.
Yeah. Well, it saved me a bunch of money, so that was nice.
Yeah. Well, and they could probably put it on the one machine instead of in the single pass, because if a machine's only got 60 feeders, I've done a video on this, and you've got 61 parts, it's like, oops.
Yep.
Right? There's like, 61 unique parts, I mean.
Yeah, unique.
Like different parts, because every unique part has to have a reel in the machine, and the machine only has so many reels. So you've either got to put it through several series machines or put it through the same machine twice.
Yeah, so but the proto service at Screaming Circuits is a little different. They do tape and reel, but they can do cut tape fine.
Right.
So they do like these fancy holders that are just like off to the side, and they basically they like index.
Oh, flat holders. So it's is it a flat?
Exactly.
Tape?
Okay. Yeah. So
right.
It's a little bit more hands on, whatever. But it's real nice for that kind of stuff, and so you don't have to send in reels.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Or they don't have to re-reel them. If you buy those cut tapes from DigiKey, your assembler is going to be a bit miffed at you, because then they've got to get a reel, and they've physically then got to attach tape and like sticky tape and then tape it in there and turn that cut tape back into a reel, so then they can put it, and it needs leader on it, so then they can put it into their pick and place machine. And they're going to charge you for that and be really
they're going to charge you and just be like, well, go get a Mouser reel or a Digi reel or whatever.
That's what the Mouser or Digi reel does. That's why if you get a pick and place machine, don't buy the cut tape. There's 3 options at DigiKey and Mouser and Element 14 and all that. Do Element 14 do reels? Do they like do the Digi
I think so.
reel equivalent?
I haven't. Okay. I haven't used them in a while.
I've never bought one from them. I bought them from Mouser and DigiKey. But anyway, there's 3 options. You can buy a full reel, which you got to buy like 4,000, however many parts it is, like 4,000 or something like that.
Yeah. 20,000 if it's an 0201 reel.
or if you're lucky. Somebody on Twitter posted this. I can't remember who it was, but I think I retweeted and commented that they got all this packaging. They bought like 2 chips from DigiKey, and they got all this packaging, like they were in trays, right? These giant trays. And they sent them these giant trays for their 2 chips. And they wondered, this is wasteful. It's like, well, you're the one who ordered the last 2 chips, so you got stuck with the packaging garbage, which they would have had to throw out. So they just ship it in the giant tray because you ordered the last 2 chips. So it's the same with the reel. If you get lucky and there's 850 parts left on that reel, and you order 850, they'll ship you the whole reel. Usually, that's right. That's okay. Or you can choose a Digi reel or a Mouser reel, which is they will actually cut off and then re-reel. They'll do that job that your assembler would have done for you. And I think it's $8 a reel. I think it's
7 last I looked, but it might be up to 8 now. Yeah.
And the third is cut tape, which you just get the tape. They pull it off and they cut it and they give it to you.
You got to put like some wastage on there too. So like
you got to put wastage. So you got to order. 5%,
Yeah.
10% depends on the, which can add up if you've got an expensive resistor. If you've got a 30-cent resistor and you need, if you've got a dollar resistor, it's a real precision jobby.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was calculating the total cost on all this stuff, and like the prototypes are about $500 prototypes at the end of the day.
Each board.
Yeah. So like the assembly costs, the boards, the parts, and the real stinker that I always forget about, but always gets me. So I have some QuickTel modems on there, right? So they got cellular modems, and like the real stinker of it is like I got 5 modems, and for some reason QuickTel only ships on a courier account, fine, whatever, but they only ship overnight international.
Modem.
Like a cellular. It's like a module that basically is can talk to a cell tower.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about like a dial-up modem.
Yeah, I use that term interchangeably. They're much smarter than just a modem, but like basically it's basically it's a cell tower interface chip effectively, right? So, but you just talk to it over a serial, right? So like if you have you worked with cell modules before either?
Yes, I have. It's like a serial in, RF out, magic happens, serial back out the other end. It's magic. It's a wireless serial link basically.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and it's like that's also how XB modules work too. Like they're just like these, usually in the case of cellular modules, if you're using the serial and you don't have it mapped as a certain type of data port, it's usually just AT commands, right? Literally like AT plus,
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've used these so many times in wireless production test gear because it's just so easy. Because it's so easy to implement like a serial port in your microcontroller, right? And code. It's just like it's really easy. And then you don't have to muck around with the RF. You buy these modules and it's like you're connecting two things with a physical serial cable. So
that's right. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of crap in between, but yeah, it can be as nice as that if it works out. And so I don't remember where I was going with that, but
you're mentioning that like available.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Modems versus modules versus shipping. So like the modules were like 15. The production price is gonna be like $8-10, something like that. But it's so it's more for low volume, fine, whatever. But then another like $100 in shipping just for these 5 modems to come to the US. And then I have to bounce them back out to the assembler. And so it's like, oh well, that's actually like, okay, now it's like a $30 modem, like instead of a 15, and like that just really ups the cost. And like all of the overhead stuff, and like so in the same case of like if you had to do digi-reels, $7 per reel doesn't sound that bad in single quantities, but if you have 50 uniques and you need 50 digi-reels, that's another $350 on top. And then it's like, okay, well now we're talking some real money here, like it's really
exactly.
So
did that eat into your profit, or did you pass the charge on to the client?
Dave, I am the customer.
Oh, I thought this was for a client job.
No, this is very different for me. So this is the board that I've been designing for contextual electronics.
Contextual electronics board, right?
Right. So it's I'm going to put it maybe on Tindy at some point, but right now it's just in test phase. But the idea is basically it's a starter
I've seen
board.
It,
yeah, you've seen it, right? So it's basically it's like a starter board for all of future clients of like, it's got a cell modem, it's got Bluetooth, it's got all the power handling, all that stuff, it's got interface. And then I can just slap a daughter card onto it, and it basically just becomes whatever the daughter card is. That's kind of the idea.
Right.
Yeah. So,
awesome. So it was worth. So are you going to continue to do that because I didn't have to assemble that bastard, and I shouldn't have picked 0402s. It's like when you're assembling you're going, I shouldn't have picked 0402s.
It's interesting. The 0402 thing, I'm okay with that mostly.
You're okay with it?
My eyes are still doing okay with that.
So do you do it by eye, or do you use a lamp? Do you use like a Maggie lamp or something?
I don't know. I still, as long as I have good lighting, I can still do it by hand.
Right. Okay.
And since I mostly cut out caffeine out of my life, like my hands are much steadier than they used to be.
Right.
So that part's been okay. It's a lot of time, and you can get more dense, so you have a lot more parts. Yeah, no, I think that part's okay.
Would you reflow those, or would you individually hand solder?
The 0402s in general?
Oh, just the whole board. Like, would you actually do a stencil and reflow it?
Oh, I would. So the real reason I ended up sending aside from the timing working out where I wanted to treat myself while I was away, there is this stinker of a part on the NRF 52840. It's a AQFN, so it's like basically like 2 rows of BGA with like a huge center pad, and I'm really nervous about it.
No, that's just evil. Yeah.
Yeah. If I have access to an X-ray in the future, I might be a little bit more confident about it. But I was.
Well,
like,
that's something you have to reflow. Like you can't hand solder that. Like,
oh, that's right. Yeah.
Well, no, you can. Like I've done a video where these sorts of packages, you can actually, if it's got a thermal pad, that's really handy because then you can drop vias down to the bottom side. You can have a big exposed pad on the bottom. Then you can get your soldering iron on the bottom side and then heat that up. And then that will actually then flow through the bond wires and actually heat up the, heat up the pads around it under the chip. So
and you can do it if you have like a board preheater too. I feel like that's
a board preheater. It helps.
You just pre-tin all the pads, and then you just kind of put a shitload of flux on there, and pray. And but the thing was, I didn't want to do that on the first one, right? I want to make sure that I haven't made other stupid mistakes first.
Just send it to an assembler.
Yeah.
Let them do it properly.
Another interesting thing. So like looking at domestic versus international, overseas. And like, Dave, let me tell you, man, like it's like I said, I love Screaming Circuits. Like they were great, but like PCBWay was like, I got a quote. It was like, I think $30 instead of 300. It was like a 10x difference. And I was like, oh, wow. You know, it's just, I didn't want to, at the time I was like, I don't really want to deal with, like sending parts overseas, worrying about customs, like, like timing issues, whatever.
And there's a big issue with delays at the moment. And things,
Right. And so like, it wasn't worth it for me this time, but like in the future, like, okay. Yeah. If I've got like a bunch more time and I've got the design ironed out, like, I could go there. I could go to a bunch of other places internationally. That's not a big deal. So,
but if you're passing the cost onto a client, I'd go local because you can.
Well, again, I am the client, Dave. So if,
but I'm saying, but you've also got your side business doing client stuff, right?
Oh, sure.
So,
Yeah, I think that is like I think it's not like, I don't think it's an underhanded like passing it off, right? Like it's a true quality, communication turnaround times kind of thing. Like, I think yeah, you're right. It's worth paying that premium until you need to go, high volume. So, and even high volume, you could probably find some stuff domestically. It's just not the services that I was, none of the Tempo or, Circuit Hub or any of those, PCB and NG.
This reminds me of a link you sent me like a couple of weeks ago. You sent me, oh, look at this. Oh, this looks sexy and it's a $4,000 hand pick and place machine. It's like,
wait, when?
It's got,
I sent you this?
Yeah,
no.
I'm sure it was you.
I don't think so, Dave.
It was you. Oh, no, sorry. I'm mistaken. It was David. It was my former employee, David.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Which kind of? Yep. No worries. Yeah, that's great. What's it about?
I'll see if I can hang on. I'll see if I can find it. Hang on.
So we have one of those. There's one of those at M Hub, and the downside to it. So the interesting thing is like it's got like a table that like kind of helps smooth out your motion and stuff like that for doing hand pick and place. And it's got like a rotation. It's basically got a small suction element. Basically, it's like a true pick and place where it's got a suction element, but the needle's not that good. And like, I don't know, like it doesn't seem it's a Mancorp. That's the one that I've used.
Yeah. This one is, I just sent you the link. This is a Vortex.
Okay.
Vortex. And it's a manual pick. You would think looking at it, oh, that looks like a simple pick and place machine. And it kind of is because it's got like real type things. It's even got like, tubes. You can put the tubes of parts
so like,
in there and stuff like that.
And stuff like that.
It's got like, 16 feeders on it or something. And then, but it's basically an XY table with like this manual, like it's got a thumb press on the top. And then that activates the suction thing.
Oh, cool.
And then you basically just move it. So you're using your arm. Your arm is the pick and place machine. So you move it over, put it over the part, controller. Press the button, suction, and human. It's like, and for hand placing, it's, if you just want to get the job done then and there, you don't want to dick around programming and loading a machine, then it's, but that's as niche as it gets. I mean, really. And it's like $4,000.
Yeah, I think so. Also, if you're making a machine like this, wouldn't you show like something smaller than a SOIC 16? It's like, man, that's not the hard ones, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I know it's actually because of like the photo, and it's like it's easy to show, but yeah.
Yeah. And there will be a lot of people out there, the aficionados of do-it-yourself pick-and-place machines, going like, why does this thing even exist? You know, if you go into that sort of effort, just put a motor on there and a camera, and it's a pick-and-place machine, right? And a pump.
Like, I totally get like the draw to the pick-and-place. So I talked to Stephen Hawes, who was building his own DIY one. He was on the Contextual Electronics podcast. And like he's building a DIY one, and I love following his progress. And he's like, he's kind of like building up his skills too. So he's like been like building more and more interesting equipment too. And like he even says, he's like, look, this isn't real. He's doing it for the project. He doesn't, he wants a pick and place machine eventually, but like, it's still, if there was a way that it actually programmed itself easily, well then a lot of people are out of jobs, I think, because that would be the the Ark of the Covenant.
He's being realistic.
Like
he's being realistic, totally and is admitting that it's a neat toy, but it's not really that practical.
Yeah, right. Well, and he's like improving over time.
There's like niche uses,
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I think that the example he gave was like he wants to be able to like turn it on when he goes to bed, and he like comes back and a couple boards are done, and like that is totally a achievable goal, I think, and like.
Oh, it's achievable, but how much time and effort you put into doing that is
but like again, if it's low cost enough, then too you can maybe have a couple of them, and it there's always these it is going to be corner cases, of course, but like but for a makerspace it might make sense, and for his situation makes sense. And like I said, I totally get the draw, because like I said, I spent 5 hours today hunched over a board, and if a machine could have done that, I was actually sitting right next to a machine that in theory could have done that, but I didn't want to. I don't mess around. I've made that mistake.
I keep going back to the classic example for having your own pick and place machine. Mike from Mike's Electric Stuff, right? Because his niche is designing LED things, right? These large, like, meter long boards and all sorts of, right? All sorts of stuff, right? And they've just got thousands and thousands of LEDs on them. And he literally reuses everything. So his pick and place machine is just permanently loaded with all the stuff all the parts he needs. Like he uses the same microchip pick that he's been using for the last 15, 20 years,
No, he upgraded.
He
upgraded. Yeah, he's on a pick 32 now, I think.
Oh, although he's right. Pick 30. Okay, well, I stand corrected. Anyway, so
I'm sure he still has the pick 16 in there too.
Right, there's 16 there, right.
Pick 18, whatever.
Yeah. And anyway, so he's got all these just permanently loaded his machine. And when a new client comes along, because it's all word of mouth, right? So when a new client comes around, I need this new arty farty LED thing. He goes, yep, no worries. It's got to have 10 million LEDs on it, and I'll have it to you by next week. The reason he can do it is because everything's in place. All the infrastructure's in place. All these, all these schematic footprint components, they're all tied into the machine. He's written scripts to automatically program it, and, all sorts of stuff. It's just highly automated because he's in that one niche. Whereas if he suddenly went to, designing other types of boards for other clients that do totally different things, it all starts falling apart.
Falls apart.
Right?
Yep, totally. Yeah. We need to come up with an excuse to get, not that you need an excuse, but we need a reason to have Mike back on, because we haven't talked to him.
You're right.
Too long.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. So we can, extol the virtues of his pick and place machine yet again.
Just pick his brain, really. I mean, love talking to that guy.
Yep. I think he's currently working on a meter wide board or something.
Oh my God.
On Twitter. It's like, he's got these weird ass, because all these arty farty things, they have to be weird ass, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, if it's not different, why are they doing it?
He's like the only one in the UK who's ever made like a meter long board, and he had to find a specific board house that could do it, and it's like, it's just crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I posted his, he did a teardown recently of an underwater radio. I thought that was kind of close to your old
I saw that. Yep.
space. Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Yes, I've had a dabble in that.
It was interesting.
Space.
The point he made about the connectors kind of self-sealing with like from the pressure of the water. I thought that was an interesting point. I never really thought about that.
Yeah, no, that works in the underwater marine seismic thing. That's why they're all rubberized. They're all a vulcanized rubber or whatever. I don't know the exact, type, but when they mate together, it forms it. You often, before you put these connectors together, you'll actually grease them up, right? So you'll fill it full of grease gel type stuff, and then you'll slam the connectors together, and the rubber just completely forms a watertight seal.
Right.
It's just it's great. So
there was a talk that one of the things I used to host, I'm sure I mentioned it before, but it was back in 2017, and it was Nick Bingham, and he talked about like super, super deep dive. Like he was working on the stuff with James Cameron, like the Marianas Trench stuff. I'm sure I mentioned it on the show before, but I'll bring it up again. And like hearing about like the stuff that you need to think about with like capacitors imploding, like just like the pressures around components, it's just stuff that like is so corner case for electronics in general. It was a really interesting talk. So I'll post that in the notes too. I always think about that.
Yep.
Because they were making custom things too.
If you got a air or moisture bubble trapped inside your quad flat pack, you are screwed. Right. That thing's going to explode. Yeah. Yeah. It's like as the pressure
implode
up,
probably.
So, or implode or whatever. Yeah, no, it's going to do something bad. Something bad's going to happen.
That's bad.
It's going to ruin your day, and somebody's going to die at the bottom of the ocean. It's serious business.
Mm-hmm.
So probably even more so than space. Like really
space goes the other
deep
direction,
underwater.
Right?
Well, because like pressure is space is like just cold vacuum. You can deal with that. Right, dealing with pressure's hard.
Yeah,
like keeping pressure out is like at the bottom of the ocean.
Infinity, right? I mean, like it can keep going to higher and higher levels, right? Whereas, like once you're at vacuum, you're at vacuum. Like not that space is easy. Don't get us wrong here.
No, I can remember many hours spent hunched over a pressure vessel. We used to have giant pressure vessels, like I'm talking like a meter wide, so 3 foot wide or something, 4 foot wide.
Yep,
pressure vessels, and all of our equipment would, you'd have like custom racks built in there to like put your equipment in, and then you'd have proper penetrators to get like test signals in and out and stuff like that. And these giant, hydraulic pressure vessels, and you'd stand back, you'd close the gate, and the big arm, it'd come down, then it'd seal, and then these big lock-in, things, and it would go down to like 2,000 meters pressure and stuff like that. And these things were serious bits of kit. If you didn't use them right, you could kill yourself.
Oh, totally.
It's and
the interns weren't allowed to play with that one, I bet.
you had to go through the training course, and you had to, it's and just testing stuff, underwater pressure stuff is like, it's really a big deal. So even when you go down like a couple of 100 meters, it start getting serious pressure, right? Right.
What kind of pressures would they see at like a couple 100 meters?
Oh, I can't remember how many, 10 bar or something.
Okay.
Rings a bell. This is 25 years ago. This is like 20 years ago now. Right. Yeah. So this was mid-90s kind of thing. What's 20 bar in meters? Sorry, 10 bar in meters.
My brain thinks in PSI, which is real dumb.
101 meters is 10 bars. There you go. That's right. A bar every 10 meters, roughly.
Oh, okay. Of course, metric would make sense like that. Yeah.
Although it's not spot on. It's 101.97. So 10 bar to 101.97. So
is there some with atmospheres too, or no? Isn't like atmospheres the SI unit? I don't remember.
Oh, I don't know. But anyway, one bar is 10.2
millimeters of Hg
of
water. Like a water column.
Yeah, exactly. So God, it's so long ago.
Dave, why do engineering students spend the first 2 years learning about other stuff?
I know.
I'm just thinking back to physics class. I'm like, oh, this is all SI
I know,
stuff.
But you wouldn't learn bars in.
We didn't remember it, so like, who cares?
No,
right?
exactly. Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
To go back to that real quick, there are some programs that do like auditing of like different fields and like electronics and stuff like that, and they'll do like small project type stuff. Obviously, this is going to be Chris talking about how he loves project-based education, but I think that's great just to like go out and try a bunch of, like, Olin is one that I think of course. Olin Olin College is like one of the best experiential education for engineering, I think. But like they do like an auditing course, I believe, and there's some other schools that do auditing courses in early ones. So again, if you're a student,
what does auditing course mean? What is
so
that?
Like they would do like a project course where it would be like, go build, a little Bluetooth thingy, use an Arduino, right? And that would be like a college course, right? For people that have never done it before. They're like, just see if you like this a little bit.
Right, but why is it called auditing?
Because you'd be like, you'd be trying out these different things. You'd also maybe go and design something in a mechanical, you'd be auditing all these different,
that just seems a weird
fields.
Use of the word. Yeah, I totally get it, but that sounds
that might be my vocab that's wrong.
Okay,
but it's like, it's basically, you're basically trying out all these different fields. It's like a poo-poo platter or a smorgasbord of different engineering disciplines. Yeah.
Hang on. You can't just drop poo-poo platter in the middle of the amp hour and not get questions. What's a poo-poo platter?
Poo-poo platter was like the multi-dish platter that like Chinese American restaurants. I'm sure it's not ethnically correct, but it was like the smorgasbord of like if you went to like a Chinese American restaurant,
right?
Like, the poo-poo platter would be like a little bit of everything. PU. I gotta make sure I'm looking this up right. But I just always
okay, not POO. Oh, okay,
yeah.
right. So
poo
like poo is like a Chinese word or something.
A typical poo-poo platter, as found in American Chinese cuisine, might include an egg roll, spare ribs, chicken wings, chicken fingers, beef teriyaki, skewered beef, fried wontons, crab rangoon, and fried shrimp. All of which are like not Chinese food. Like
right, of course.
This is like
it's
Americanized, Chinese,
Americanized, yeah.
Deep fried. Just like, have you ever had crab rangoon before? Do you know what that is?
No, I have no idea.
It's basically like fried dough around like fake crab and like cream cheese. I don't know how it became
American.
A thing.
Sounds very American.
It sounds like something you would eat at like a like an Arkansas like state fair. Like
right.
People eat that up around here. Let me tell you. I have not had really, really bad Chinese food, like American Chinese food, in a long time. But this makes like, this is like a callback. I gotta go.
Right.
Yeah, it's real bad. Oh boy, yeah.
Oh boy, yeah. There's going to be lots of comments from our Asian audience, I'm sure.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Like I said, it's Asian. It's Chinese American food. It's not like, this is not. I do not even come close to saying that this is a true Chinese food.
We have Australian Chinese and Australian Thai. If you go to a Thai restaurant here, it's not Thai food. It's Australianized Thai.
Exactly.
It's
like, I mean, it's all fast food anyway, right? It's like it's delicious and it's deep fried and stuff. Yeah.
Wow, we learned something new here on the Amp Hour today.
Poo-poo platter.
Poo-poo platter.
At least I got it right. I was worried. As you were laughing, and I was like, "Oh crap! Did I say this wrong?"
Oh boy.
Yeah.
It sounds like something that my kids would say, because like boys are into, 8-year-old boys are into
this
poo-poo.
Tastes like a poo-poo platter.
Exactly.
But, you can teach that to them, and now they're gonna love you for it.
Because everything's a poo joke, everything's a fart joke, everything's a bum joke.
Yep, totally. Yep.
Yep,
that's about the age my nephews are at too, and very similar.
Yes.
Yep.
I think that's pretty universal around the world. Poo and bum jokes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's still kind of funny at my age.
Yeah, of course. And then that's when your wife just rolls their eyes.
That's right. Yep.
You newly married person. You.
That's right. Right. Got
Congratulations,
a wife now.
by the way.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yep. Ball and
if
chain.
You want to. Yeah, it's well. I know. I was told I was not supposed to ever refer to her as that. So.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a real good time. We hiked all over, social distance national park kind of thing, and but yeah, got to hike some amazing trails, saw some glaciers.
Excellent. Yep, I saw the photos.
Really yeah, I'll post the Instagram link if people are interested. Lots of mountain ranges and fuzzy goats.
I don't follow you on Instagram.
Yep.
I think I only follow like 2 people on Instagram. It's like I do use Instagram now. I'm actually trying to post. There's still no one program that really posts to both at the same time, Instagram and Twitter. So I post them differently because they're I don't know. They're in some war. I don't know.
Whatever. They don't work together. Fine.
Yeah, their APIs don't work or something. Yeah. Anyway.
Yep. We are running out of time, but I did want to mention KaiCon is kind of happening this year. It's a little different. I'm going to be hosting all the developers. So there's like 12 developers now, which is great. And we're just going to have like 2 1-hour conversations just about kind of what's next. And and there will be some announcements, and people can show up and ask questions and stuff like that. So that's coming up on October 3rd. So if people are interested, there's a sign up on the KaiCon page, which I will link in, and you can watch it after the fact too. It's not a big deal. But if you want to participate live, and there's also a hashtag on Twitter, I forget what it is, but I will post it here. If you want to ask questions about V6, which is coming. So
excellent.
Lots of fun stuff coming. I noticed you were. Did you use KaiCad again for something recently?
Yes, I used it for something recently. I wanted to have a little bit of a rant about that, if I may, shortly.
Sure.
Quickly.
Maybe I could bring it up on the KaiCon,
See, because I knew that DigiKey had released a KeyCAD
the library.
Library, right? So I thought, because I needed specific, right? I just wanted footprints because I was doing that demo thing. Right, I was doing that demo video, the 3 ways to fail at PCB design.
Is this the one where it was the unnamed person who was me?
Yes, the unnamed person who was maybe you.
It was definitely me.
Right.
At first I was kind of like upset about it. I was like, well, it's good as teaching other people. And
yeah, exactly. It's like, all right. Chill out. Yeah.
I'm learning.
You weren't named specifically, Anyway, well, we talked about it on the show, for goodness sake, didn't we? I mean,
we did.
Anyway, so I thought, because I needed the specific footprint, right? I needed specific, BGA footprints, and I thought I'd use KeyCAD just because, and so I thought, I'll just download this, and like, I realized that the DigiKey, it was hard to install. It wasn't easy to install that library. It wasn't true. Like, you can't just go install library. Like, it's not like, I had to put in some
you got to download it, and then you got to find it and put it in the right place.
And that was annoying.
It gets easier over time, but that's still totally a weakness. That's probably the number one thing that's brought up as a weakness.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Library management is just tough. It's getting a little better in V6, but it's
still the same. Yeah. Anyway, so I found that annoying, especially for some. As you said, if you're used to it, you know exactly what to do. But I had to go and read tutorials on how to do it. Like,
there's a video about how to install the DigiKey library. Just so you know.
Oh, I think I might have even looked at that or something.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, so I installed that, and then I realized, it's not all the parts. I thought, that's like all the parts,
and they're all atomic too. That's the other thing. So because you need to attach. So atomic being like one footprint, one symbol, one 3D model, right? Instead of having the Altium or the KiCad way of doing it where they're decoupled from one another, because in DigiKey you want to have it where, it's a specific part. So I'm putting down an LM317 ABCD, and then, there's also an LM317 DEFG, right? And it's like, those are actually different footprints. So you need to actually have 2 completely different things that are separate in the layout program and the schematic program.
Yep. Right. Anyway, I was disappointed that it didn't have everything. I thought, I'll start using KeyCAD. And because it's got all the DigiKey parts. It's magic. It's only like 1,000 parts or something.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's manually made by some of the DigiKey engineers,
which is great, right? It's manually made, but then I just I was kind of like deflated. I went,
yeah,
Yep. And of course, guaranteed by the laws of Murphy.
The one you wanted was not there. Of course,
guaranteed, right?
Yeah,
it's like, I was really let down by that. So
that is rough.
So I was let down twice. I was let down by the difficulty in installing the library, and then the fact that library only had 1,000 parts.
So there is a Bga generator, if that is easier for you in the future.
Right. Yes, that would have been much easier. That would have been the thing that.
And it's a really weird spot too. It's like
I think I tried to look. I thought there might have been a component generator, and I tried to look for it, and I couldn't find it. Is it in a weird place? Is it?
It's not. Well, it's just not labeled well. So it's like
right.
So if you pull up I think it's the footprint maker. So you have to go to the footprint. My computer's locking up now. Of course.
I think I tried to use the footprint maker, and I went in and couldn't find it immediately, so I ditched it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean that's how it goes, right?
Right.
Yeah, and then once you're in there, then there's a way to do different BGA parts. You can generate other things. I'm not sure if they're JEDEC based, or I'm not sure if they're standard like that or anything like that, but they work okay. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so it's there's if you go into the footprint editor, there's new library, add library, new footprint, create footprint, and create footprint is the one that's the actual generator. And it's like, no, that should just be it should say generator or something like that. So there's BGA, circular pad, FPC, stuff like that. So
cool. Yeah. Right. All right. I just didn't look hard enough, I guess.
I mean, that's a tough thing to find, honestly. So
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
There is a new Snap EDA. Friends over at Snap EDA just announced they have a plugin now too. So I've been using Snap once in a while, and there's not just Snap. There's EE Librarian, there's Ultra Librarian, or EE Concierge rather. I think is the what is their names? The ones who got bought by Altium, they make
Upverter, is it?
Yeah, Upverter. They had a generator as well. They had you could pay to get them generated. And like when I started, we talked about this a little bit with getting the board assembled. Like it's like $20-$30 for a part now. It's like, oh man, like you really start to do the math, and you're like, yeah, that from a time-wise perspective, if it's a complicated enough part, and if they guarantee it's like, yeah, and if it's gonna have a 3D model too, like. That actually, okay, maybe, and there's a bunch of services like this out there now. So it's like, I like that. I still haven't like gotten into that flow, but I know some people who like professionally, they just kind of like have an account and they're just like, there's all the different ones out there.
Bam.
And they just click, and they come back, in a couple hours the next day and it's ready to go. It's like, oh,
I totally would have done. Well, we did have that like at Altium internally, like we would be like, we do a lot of libraries ourselves, but the 3D models, right? Because Altium, we were like the 3D model the 3D model thing was kind of new at the time, so we had to all our parts had to be precisely 3D modeled and everything, right? So we'd have mechanical engineers that did that. We'd have library people who specialized in making 3D models, and it was like, oh, that was great. So you just send them the number and they'd and bingo, an hour later came back your nice 3D model, and you just whack that in your part, and beautiful.
That's real nice. I've gotten very comfortable with very dependent upon 3D models, and it's
Why can whoever's in charge of like putting together the build for KiCad, can they just get all the latest libraries like KiCad and these Snap EDAs and just get all the biggies out there and just bundle them with the stock install? That'd be nice.
So the latest build pulls in the GitHub controlled official KiCad library. So there are librarians now, and so it does pull that in.
But can they also pull in the big ones, like the the seed ones and the
I see.
Doesn't JLC have one as well? There's I don't know, all these companies, all these assembly and distribution companies that have all these libraries. So it'd be nice if they were all in core, or at least half a dozen of them. Don't get every tin pot one, but at least get all the major ones everyone's heard of, kind of thing. So
I think I'm not very up to date on the V6 what's coming, but one thing that I did talk to Seth and Wayne about, I think there's a marketplace coming. And so I think that might be like a click to install kind of thing that's on the way. And that actually might be the best solution in the future, where it's just like, oh, I want the Snap EDA thing, click. Oh, I want the, the seed library, click. Yeah, that would be the best case scenario. So yeah, I'll ask about that though. It is a good idea. I mean,
that'd be fantastic.
Having that centralized system where it's just, you don't have to maybe don't pull everything. Cause even I think the KiCad libraries are 6 or 7 gigs, but being able to do
at least have if there's a third party menu option or something like that, just says import, and then sure, the links might get broken eventually, but you just keep that up to date. So if it just I want to install
that's on the company that you're pulling from
plugin. Please install the DigiKey plugin, one click and boom. That's always that is always the balance point of something that's open source, but still centralized, and there's always that push pull of that. But I think from a ease of use kind of that's I think a great power of Altium, right? Is that it is if you buy into that ecosystem, you're there, you just have it, and it's you're good to go. So but I think that's one of the features that everyone could agree is useful for almost everyone. It's being able to call in libraries.
No one's no, I want to do this. I'd like to spend my weekends, please. And I think some people are like, well, I don't want to depend on someone else and get something messed up. But I understand that is a risk aversion. But I don't think that people are really particular about their wanting to like, oh no, I need to have my own line widths. They have to be perfect. So the kerning on my text has to be really, really good.
Yeah. All right, can we finish off the show with a bench of the week?
Sure. Is this the one that was in the background of your?
No.
That was a great bench.
You're being stuck into the mindset of electronics benches.
Oh,
what about optical benches?
Ooh, optical bench. What does that mean?
It's in our list. It's in our list. Have a look at it. Okay. The optics table from hell. This was posted on Twitter by a Dr. Carls Brown. He's a physicist. He's a physicist at UC Berkeley, postdoc, Yale, PhD. Anyway.
Doesn't sound very smart.
What?
I said he sounds very, very smart. That's what I was saying.
Right.
Physicist at Berkeley, Yale, Brown, like all these different things.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Anyway, he posted this image on Twitter of the optics table from hell. It's got optics tables on top of optics tables with vertical optics tables.
This is insane.
And he didn't build all this. It's like been built by various students over the years, and they just it's like the holy grail.
This
you
is
do
like
not touch it.
This is like the Jim Williams of optic tables.
Yeah. This is the Jim Williams of optic tables.
That is so awesome. What does one use an optics table? This is for like building setups for like bending light and stuff like that?
Yes, like bending light, filtering light. So yeah, it's all to do with, various measurements of different types, and you've got to bend them, filter them, split them, recombine them, and for various like physics experiments and things like that.
Wow.
So yeah, I think in the Twitter thread, he does actually go through and explain what some of it does, I think. But it's just,
I'm going to dig into that.
It's insane.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, an optics table is basically a real ridiculously heavy, like couple of 100 kilo metal table that is like precisely machined flat.
Yeah.
And it doesn't move. It's got anti-vibration feet. It doesn't vibrate. It's like, so this huge, stable, physical metal platform that just has a whole bunch of machined threaded holes all over it. It's like Swiss cheese.
It's like a pegboard, but basically like horizontal.
It's like a pegboard for and then you screw in all of your optics, lasers, your lenses, your beam splitters, your beam combiners, your measurement things, and then and so you bounce lasers all around these tables. I'm sure you've seen it in like movies and whatnot,
right. Weird science. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum.
Yeah, it allows you to get in there and just tweak. Oh, I want to move that filter in and out, so you can physically just drop it in and out, and
that is super cool.
All sorts of
Would you know what the spacing is on those tables? Like, is it like a standard like 10 centimeters or something like that, or?
I got no idea between the holes. It looks like maybe an inch or something. I don't know. Oh no, maybe less. I don't know. I'm sure there is a standard.
Yeah. Whatever it is, I'm sure there's a metric and an imperial and.
Yep.
They argue about that too.
Yep. I'm sure they do. Our optic brethren.
Right.
Yep.
Every time someone brings up, so like Jerry Ellsworth would always talk about optics with, like when she was explaining like the, the VR, AR kind of stuff too. And like, it is like a whole other world to me. And we've had one or two other people on the show who've talked about it, but man, I just like, I don't get it. I gotta like dig into that at some point. It seems like a very expensive thing to get into, but it's
it's a very expensive hobby. Yep.
Yeah. Well, someday.
Yes, my Phil, my brother-in-law, patent attorney brother-in-law, he's an optical physicist. That's what he got his PhD in, optical physics, and he wants an optics table in his home. Yeah. But the wife, I think, has vetoed the optics table. So,
What are you going to use it for?
I don't know. I just want to play with lasers and shit.
Right. I'll find a use eventually.
That was not a compelling enough reason. I just want to play with lasers and shit.
Yep. Oh my god.
Didn't fly. I'm afraid. So, yep.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have to ping Dr. Brown here and see if there's a reason for him to be on the show. That might be interesting to hear from him. Like, wow.
It's nuts.
That's a great photo.
I love it. And it's also packed in too. Anyway.
Oh yeah.
Done.
Right.
Yep.
All right.
That's it.
Well, talk to you next time. No, wait, I say something else. What do I say? I'll see you later.
You don't know. Catch you next time.
keep on zapping.
After all these years, you still haven't got an outro right.
Electrons, ho.
Oh, God.
The current be flowing.
Why do I feel like Julian banjos are about to come into...
Zippity, zippity, zippity.
Oh.
All right.